Welcome to Grove Bites. I'm Richard Steele. My guest today is Pete Phillips, Director of the Centre for Digital Theology at Durham University and Head of Digital Theology for Premier Christian Media. He's the author of the Grove book, Hybrid Church, Blending Online and Offline Community. I began by asking him to reflect on what had changed over this year when churches in this country and around the world closed their physical doors one Sunday and took their services to Facebook, Zoom and YouTube the next. They soon realised, he said, that it was about far more than just filming the Sunday service.
I think people have got more sensitive about the issue of community online. We're desperate to reach out to people because we're not getting any social contact through physicality. And so I think people have focused more on prayer meetings and Bible studies and alpha courses, and the intimacy that you can get in those kind of groups through Zoom, or through Teams perhaps, or Skype, or whatever the route is that you go for it. And I think that's, so we kind of have this kind of routine now, I think, where people are often live streaming services, but with bits that are live and bits that are kind of pre-recorded. And then lots of things like coffee mornings and prayer meetings, all that interact with us a lot more. And I think we're kind of putting up with our mistakes a lot more, which is good. A lot of our ministers are kind of burnt out through all their digital engagement, and we need to give them grace and let them not be the BBC.
I think there's a general thing, isn't it, that we've got used to the kind of mobile phone footage with all sorts of things. So perhaps that's helped a bit. But so people are a little more forgiving, shall we say?
Hopefully.
The centre has been involved in thinking around digital for something like 20 years now. Suddenly, everybody is talking about it. Before it was a bit niche. How do you feel about that? As someone who's been trying to push this, and it needed a crisis, a pandemic, to bring this to the fore.
It's been really intriguing. So we've been trying to write a little bit about it as well in the Hybrid Church book. We began with a little bit in Engaging the Word. We just brought out a book on Missio Dei in the digital age. So we've got texts out there kind of exploring digital, and it's great to have some feedback from that. We developed an international network called the Global Network for Digital Theology, or GON Digital, is a kind of abbreviated form of it. And that's picking up international scholars from all over the place. And so, we're beginning to see how this is shaping the world, not just here in the UK. So how it's shaping America and Singapore and Hong Kong and Australia and South Africa and, China and the whole thing. So it's really interesting to pick up a global pattern of what's happening. But a lot of my time is saying, no, I don't want to do that, thank you, and trying to push other voices. I'm just a 50-year-old, 50-plus-year-old bearded white man, and there are so many really good other people from other ethnic minorities worldwide, and women who are great scholars who need to be doing the talking, and it's kind of getting the right balance between saying, yeah, I can do that, and no, somebody else should do that. So digital kind of provides that kind of catalyst for networking that's worked so well.
Can I move to the some of the research that you quote in your book? Because there's lots of figures being tossed around, aren't there? About the millions of people searching for prayer, joining online services. And it's interesting because the word conversion, which has a very religious element, also has a marketing element. You convert observers to people actually solid engagement. How many millions of those people, clicks and views, do you think are being converted in either use of the term?
Yeah, we don't have the figures at the moment because we don't have the kind of new normal here at the moment. I mean, because Savanta Comres, you can create a old figure and new figure for attendance. So physical attendance is about 4 million per Sunday in the UK, which is very small. It's between 5 and 7% of the population. The Savanta Comres figure that we had for September, which is the last one we did, was 28% of the population, which is 50,
quite different. So huge.
Yeah, which is between 15.6 and 18 million. Okay, depending on where you take the population. So you've got a 400% increase. Now, that's people who are kind of saying themselves that they are engaging in faith-related organized worship, okay, online.
Mm.
Um, and that seems incredibly high, incredibly high. Um, but it's an opinion poll from one of the leading opinion pollsters, and other aspects of their polling is what we would expect. Um, so the big question is: are these people um, anonymous viewers, or are they new disciples? And I think it's going to take us a while to work that out. We knew already that people would attend digital church for 3 to 6 weeks before they showed up in person. They like to find somewhere that's anonymous. They like to see what we're doing. They like to find out when do we stand up, when do we sit down, what are our rights, what kind of people go to this church, are any people like them, and so on and so on. So on. Yeah. So the digital church provides a great place. So that's why your church services should really be showcasing lots of people from your church, lots of people from different ages, backgrounds, ethnicity, everything. It shouldn't just be the vicar doing it. Yeah, it should be lots and lots of people doing it. Um, but then we need to kind of wait and see how many people come in. But then we also need to kind of work a bit harder on this conversion. We need to convert these people from being anonymous viewers to being digital disciples, or Christian disciples of whatever hue. And that's going to take a lot more discipleship, a lot more engagement with people, finding out how they want to engage with the church and connecting with what the church is doing and what God's doing at the moment.
A lot of people are using the term virtual church, but from reading your book, I guess you don't like that term very much, do you?
No, I'm not very keen on virtual church. I think the big problem is that with the word virtual is that it sets up a dichotomy between virtual and real. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's almost as though physical is real and digital is virtual. Yeah.
Mm.
But I'm real. I'm really here, And when I have this conversation, I did a whole lecture last week in Singapore for Bible graduate school there, and it's up on YouTube. But there the whole lecture was on, is digital church a real church? And I think ecclesiologically, where 2 or 3 are gathered together, Jesus is there in their midst. That makes them a church. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But also it's this ritual, it's prayer, it's Bible study, it's also communion and sacraments and stuff like that. And the kind of idea that the encounter that people find online with God is anything other than real is just nonsense. How could we say that God isn't involved in this stuff, in connecting
So
us
in your book,
together?
the title "Hybrid"
Yeah,
is trying to, is a real in both senses, aren't you? I suppose digital is real, physical is real. As you say, we're too early to see what the difference is going to make in the longer term when the crisis is over.
that's right.
But just to pick up one example from the book, I think it's a fascinating link of that physical and digital. Was the rosaries from
Mhm.
Malta? Can you just sort of tell us that story? Because I just found that amazing.
Yeah, sure. So I picked 4 people who to kind of write this book with me, um, who were going to be digitally centered. Matthew's a games player or computer geek, and he worked in London as in a games company, and then got a call to ministry. Trained 7 years for the priesthood in Malta, and as part of that, he came to Durham to do our course in MA in digital theology. He's gone back to Malta, was ordained last March before, and then started work in a parish while I supervise a PhD that he's doing in Malta. Now, what they decided to do in the lockdown was to take him and his parish priest, who's a lot older than he, to walk into local villages, and then to set up in the public square or right the junction or something in that village, and the young people would then be kind of pre-told to go and get laptops and iPads and stuff to their older relatives, which they did and set them up and what have you. And then they had a young person filming them in the square, and then that was going to these iPads in lots of people's houses, and they then shared the rosary. They shared the ministry, the prayers there. And so it's this sense of kind of the priests coming to the people to their village, but still couldn't meet them. And so they then connected digitally. So the whole village was engaged in this wonderful act of prayer. And I think it's a wonderful story. You know, it's this sense of
It really is interesting. And
digital connection.
you said you spoke to some other people as you put this book together. What
Mm.
would you say were one or two of the other key points that some of the other contributors make?
Yeah, yeah. Joe Cox has this kind of put this easel out at the bottom of her garden or at the garden path on the main street, and she kind of put badges for NHS people who passed by to kind of clip on their uniforms, or a cup of tea for anybody to, bag of tea, tea bag for them to pick up and take home and have a cup of tea and think about God. Um, she began to do labyrinths in her church car park that people could come and do. And then she started putting a commune table in the middle and standing there with it. So you went through the labyrinth and found communion and connection with God, which is fantastic because, of course, in the Methodist Church, we're not allowed to do online communion. Um, but then others, Bryony using phones in order to link up with sermons. So she'd do these online sermons, but then people couldn't connect because older people didn't have connection to the digital. It doesn't say that all old people don't, but some don't. Um, and so she gave them a text. She sent them a message and said, I've set up this system so you can dial this number and it's free. We'll pay for it, and you can listen to my sermon. She found out quite quickly that people were doing it multiple times, and that's because that was the only human voice they were hearing. Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
actually the human voice and the kind of company that they wanted, as much as drawing so much from Bryony's sermons. So lots of people using lots and lots of different technology, and I think that's why we thought it was going to be a book on the digital church,
Mm.
but we then realised that you can't have digital without the physical. Yeah, the two go hand in hand, and hence it's hybrid church, where we want to say that it's important to bring both digital and physical together into what's called in the States and in Asia phygital church.
Digital. Okay.
Phygital, yeah, but we call it hybrid church in the UK because phygital sounds horrible.
And I very much agree. Peter believes that digital media will have a similar effect to that previous disruptive technology, printing. Just as printing Bibles was key to the evangelical revival, so perhaps this new version of church will likewise turn around the decline of decades and lead to a wider network of smaller groupings no longer so fixed to our buildings. To read his argument, to find out the research that backs them up, and read the stories of 3 people trying to develop church for today and tomorrow, go to Grove Books, where you can order Hybrid Church as a print copy with free postage or as a PDF. There are many more great Grove books applying the Bible to a wide variety of situations in the church and the world, and they're written by authors who know what they're writing about. Grove Books are bite-sized publications that you can really get your teeth into. Goodbye for now. Hope to see you again soon.